the Plotcast podcast with the Potty Plotters.
Hello and welcome back to the Potty Plotters Plotcast. I'm Julia.
And I'm Elaine.
And together we are the
Potty Plotters.
And we are now talking to you on episode 18 of our Plotcast podcast. And don't forget, you can get in touch with us at any time via our social channels. What are they, Elaine?
It's like a big exam, this, isn't it? Every time we start and think about what is it? Right. We have got Instagram, Facebook and Twitter at Potty Plotters. We've got a website, Julia.
pottyplotters.uk.
And people can get in touch with us via our email account, which is naughtycorner@pottyplotters.uk. Phew.
Okay, well, it's been a crazy busy time, hasn't it? And today we're going to chat loads to you.
Well, you're probably going to do more talking than me because we're going to be talking about tomatoes, the last place that we're going to be planting them, together with cucumbers, my favourite thing, almost favourite. I really like beetroot, actually. But anyway, and we're also going to talk about melons.
I don't think I've ever got more of a word in than you because you kind of, you don't come up for air, do you? It has been commented on, and normally we take an oxygen bottle wherever we go with you, so you can carry on.
It is true, and I don't know why I talk so much because my school reports indicated that I didn't talk enough, and that was very quiet and lacked confidence. I've made up for it in the adult
You
life,
certainly have, haven't you?
There you go.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what we're going to be doing today. And also, we're going to be talking to Lee Norbury. Now, nobody necessarily on an allotment site might have heard of him, but we know of him because he is a Chelsea chap. He is a garden designer, and we're going to chat to him about what he does and what he's going to be doing this year at Chelsea.
Contact the Potty Plotters anytime on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at Potty Plotters or email naughtycorner@pottyplotters.uk.
So we've moved inside now to the polytunnel, Julia. Queen of the tomatoes. Tomatoes is what we're going to do.
Yes, indeed we are. And we're going to plant a variety called Gardener's Delight. Now, in front of me, I've got my massive structures for my Beefmaster tomato, but we are planting some Gardener's Delight and they don't need quite that much support. So I've already dug the hole where I am going to plant them. And what I've got in my hand, Elaine, is some string.
Okay.
And the reason I've got string is I'm going to string my tomatoes up. So all I'm doing is creating a circle with the string and then tying a circle. How would you describe that? Tying a circle?
I'd describe it as a complete hash. What are you doing?
Well, you need to create a circle. You need to create a noose,
double
almost.
circle?
Yeah, a noose almost, and plant it underneath the tomato plant. And the reason we're doing that, now can you bend down again?
Yes.
Come with me.
Or if I get down, I might not get up.
That's what bothers me.
Ooh.
So these Gardener's Delight, as we know, these are a cordon variety of tomato. We've spoken about that before. So the cordon variety are the type that you pinch out rather than the bush variety, which we would just plant in a plant pot outside generally. So I've got my string and I'm going to put my noose almost at the bottom of the hole. And then I'm going to get the plant that we planted in episode, was it 14?
3,472, I think it was. It feels like it.
It was when we went to the football ground. Can you remember?
Right, yeah,
that was
okay,
memorable,
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
it? So anyway, we pricked it out and we potted on, and now it's a nice healthy plant. It's about 6 to 8 inches tall, and it's ready to go into the planting hole. So all I'm going to do,
You know, Julia, interrupting you, as soon as you started touching that plant, I can smell tomato.
oh, you're obsessed with it,
I know,
aren't
I
you?
love it.
Shall I smear it all? Anyway, so all I'm going to do is put my fingers either side of the plant on the top of the plant pot and then give the plant pot around the bottom a squeeze.
What is it, a fetish? What? Is it a purpose?
Yes, because I want to loosen the roots of the tomato plant. I'm not like you. Anyway, I'm going to turn the plant pot upside down, give it a pat on the bottom, and look at the roots on that. And I'm going to put the tomato plant directly into the hole on top of the noose. And then I'm going to backfill around the tomato plant with the compost and soil that's already there.
So you're securing it in. I mean, you are giving it some hammer there, Julia.
Yeah, I want to make sure it's a nice secure plant, so I'm popping it in. And then the reason that we've got this piece of string and we've tied it in a noose is I am then going to tie it right the way up to the supports in my polytunnel. And as the plant begins to grow, I will twist the plant around the piece of string as it's growing up. And that means that there's no cane or anything. It's just nice and easy. But the reason that you have to do the noose at the bottom, if you didn't have the noose, as it grows and the weight of it will just pull the string out. So off we go. Oh, Elaine. Oh, goodness me. So what we do now, we slowly train the plant around the string. And that will carry on growing. It's got a pool of water, and while it's just putting in a bit of growth to start off with, I will keep on top of the watering, but because it's in the ground I won't need to water as regularly as if we do it in a grow bag and or a plant pot. Most people tend to plant in grow bags, and what I would say is if you're planting a tomato in a grow bag, really fluff it up before you're planting it, because they become very compact and very shallow, and you want a nice deep bag. So what we tend to do is cut them in half and tip them on the sides, don't we, rather than planting in the predetermined holes that are already there. But you must remember that if you are planting in a pot or in a grow bag, you will have to water them more regularly than if they are in the ground.
Right then, so we are on the opposite side of your polytunnel. The thing is, Julia, that a lot of people will be doing this in their greenhouse. So it'll be one side I would recommend doing tomatoes like you've done, and the other side I would recommend doing cucumbers, because they actually enjoy the opposites of each other, in that one likes the humidity, the other likes a dry, arid airflow. So if you have got a greenhouse, opposite sides or end to end. Yeah. So where the door is, put the tomatoes, yeah. And then the opposite end where the warmth will be, stick your cucumbers. So what I've done here then is absolutely nothing, but what you have done yes. is you've already dug the area, which is fabulous. And all I'm going to do now is, with your tiny spade, which is a bit like a spoon for me, so I don't even need to put my foot on it. I'm just going to...
Can you just comment?
Look at it. Comment on I'd like to comment. It's so beautiful that it's actually falling in as I'm trying to dig a hole. However,
about 50 degrees, yeah.
50 degrees, what's that between friends? It's so hot in here, it's incredible. Right, so having done that, I've got my favourite stuff, Julia. Horse muck. Yeah. It's well rotted as well. That's quite hard to say on a hot day as well. So all I'm going to do is, in a bucket, I'm just shoveling it out. Actually, I want to put all of that in.
Oh, that's great.
There you go.
But why are we using horse muck, Elaine?
We like horse muck, but the main thing is this will keep the roots warm and it'll also keep them wet, which is what we want. So we don't want to overwater, which is what people do with cucumbers, but we want to keep that moisture there. Now, having put that muck in, I'm going to use this watering can.
Yeah. Did you notice? I've got the special one out for you with the long hand, with the long nozzle.
I'm just going to move backwards because the spout is so long, my friend.
Well, I got that for you so you didn't have to bend down. Having seen the performance of getting you up and down after we did the tomatoes, I think that's perfect for you.
Thank you, darling. It's lovely. So I'm just pouring liberal amounts of water, but it will all disperse. Look at that, it's going straight down. Yes. That's because you've got it to a fine tilt, Julia, so it's disappearing.
I've listened to you over the years, believe it or not. Yeah.
I'm just going to mulch it round, a bit like a mud pie this, you know, as kids. Yeah. We always made mud pies, didn't we, when we were out on allotments and gardening with your parents. Oh, look at that now. And all I'm going to do is now back down on my knees. And this one that I've got in front of me, this is Telegraph Improved. It's a lovely cucumber and it's a long one. Now, as you know, and I've said many times, I do like a long one because I think it gives value for money. But actually, this is well and truly over its time to be planted. But I've kept it deliberately to be able to show you in your polytunnel how to do things properly. So,
I beg your pardon.
Down on my knees. Right. And again, like you did, I'm just going to tip it upside down, take the label out, take that out. Now then, Julia, look at this.
Yes.
Roots. Look at that.
That's lovely.
Right then, so a lovely ball of root there. And all I'm going to do is now, very carefully, I'm going to put this cucumber in at an angle. Now, not many people would want necessarily to shove their hands in all this muck. But I have done. But I've put the plant in at an angle and now backfill with my hands, because as you said, they are like builder's hands. They're more like shovels, aren't they, at the minute?
In fact, they're bigger than my spade.
Probably more useful as well, darling. But there you go. So I've gone right up to the first set of leaves. It's really important that you bury them good and proper. And look at that, I've put it to bed. And importantly, keep the label, put it at the side, you won't forget what it is.
How do you know when to water a cucumber, Elaine? Because you don't want to overwater a cucumber,
No,
do you?
and you never ever water over a cucumber. You always water round the base. And all I do in the morning, I will test it by looking at it. And actually you can see that the damp will have risen to the top. I know it sounds daft, but it's true. And then you can tell. The other thing is that if they start to droop, now we don't want anything droopy in here.
No.
So anything that starts to droop, we'll water, but always water first thing in the morning. Never at night, because they don't like to go to bed with a wet bottom.
No, well, who does? Who does? Who does? But actually, that's a good tip. Even with tomatoes, water from the base rather than over the top. Otherwise, you'll end up with sunburn.
Definitely. And the other thing is, when you saw me tip the plant straight out of the plant pot into the hole, that's really important for people to remember. You never ever interfere with the roots of a cucumber, because they don't like the bottoms being interfered with. All you do is put the whole thing into the hole that's big enough, and then literally cover it and make sure that it's lovely and wet down there.
Lovely. Lots of bottom references. It makes you very happy, doesn't it?
It's just how I am.
The Plotcast podcast with the Potty Plotters.
At the same time that we planted cucumbers, we did actually talk about planting, well, what have you got in your hand, Julia?
I've got my melons in my hand, yes. And I wasn't going to do any this year, but you said I'd got to, so I am going to, just for you, because you're bigger than me and I'm scared of you. So now these are nice, healthy plants, again, just like the cucumber, and they are in the same family. And to be honest, I was a little bit worried when I first started doing them with cucumbers that they may cross-pollinate, because things in the same family, as we know, can sometimes cross-pollinate. But having researched it, it's a bit like cats and dogs. So although they're kind of like in the same family, so they're all mammals as such, a cat and a dog are very different, and they won't cross-pollinate, and neither will our melons and our cucumbers. Does that make sense?
Is that called a radio ramble? Because it blooming well was, yes. No, not at all, but nobody listens anyway, so it doesn't matter. Get on with it, Julia.
Right, anyway, so I'm not worried about having a cucamelon or whatever they are. So anyway, I've had to go outside again to the muck heap because you stole all my muck. But because they are in the same family, they do like the same conditions. So again, we've got a trellis for it to grow up, because that's important, because although some people will leave them rambling across the floor, they will get quite big, and we want to train them. So that's why we've got the trellis set up. And just like you, I'm going to dig a nice hole in front of the trellis in my lovely fine tilth that I did earlier, and I also incorporated some grow organic into this soil. You won't.
I wondered what the smell was.
I know you hate the smell of that, don't you? But it is a good all-round feed, and I pop that into the soil, and it's good for someone who perhaps can't get any muck or anything like that. So get the muck that we've had out of the muck heap. It's full of worms, Elaine. It's lovely. It's lovely. I mean, we do get excited about it, but there are reasons for it. And look at that. Can you see it?
I can, yeah.
At the back. Right.
So you're working it into the hole that you've created?
Yes, I'm working it into the hole, and then I'm also, like you, going to give it a good splash of water. And you almost plant it exactly the same as a cucumber. So here we are.
Are you going to cover the muck over, or are you going to leave it bare and plant straight into it?
Do you know what? I have planted straight into it before. When I've done the hotbed, I've literally just planted the melon directly into the manure as it's decomposing down, and it loves it. The melon loves it because, of course, they're very hungry plants and they're also very thirsty, so they get the moisture from the muck, and that helps retain the moisture, but also there's plenty of nutrients in there, and that is what you need to make your melons swell, Elaine.
And the good thing is, Julia, the plant that you've just taken out has got a beautiful root ball already.
It has, well done. You've grown that, haven't you?
I have, yeah. So you're covering up the muck now, right up until the first set of leaves.
The baby leaves, because they're not going to do anything. But again, like you with the cucumber, I am going to be very careful about watering, because you don't want the stem to rot. So what I do when I water it, again, keep an eye on the soil around it. Put your finger in if necessary to test for moisture. I know you'll get muck all over your finger. And then I always water about 4 or 5 inches away from the stem, so that I don't make the stem rot.
Brilliant, because the last thing you want is stem rot, joking apart, because as soon as they get that, they literally just drop off, don't they?
They do, and I will say to people, I think it's better to underwater than overwater, because once you've overwatered and things have rotted, there's not much going back from there. Whereas if you underwater, the plant might get a little bit stressed, might get a little bit droopy. We don't want droop, as you say, but at least it can recover from it.
You definitely don't want droopy melons. Come on, let's get out of here.
The Plotcast podcast with the Potty Plotters.
So we've moved back out into the beer garden, Elaine, thank goodness for that, because we were beginning to melt, weren't we, in there, because it does get very hot in the polytunnel. And we've had a question in.
We certainly have, and it's from Leslie Pegg. And she said, when you set forks, Forks, as line markers, which way up do you put them in the soil?
Depends whether you're going to eat the soil or not, doesn't it?
It does. And it depends if you're going to take them out in between over the next few weeks at all, Leslie. But what you also need to know is that you can do it either way. But if you're going to put your markers inside the prongs, is that a word? Prongs?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Prongs of the fork, then what I would suggest is that you put the handle into the soil and then put the marker into the prong, and then the prong will be outside of the soil. So, hints and tips, Julia.
Well, as you know, we've done tomatoes in the polytunnel.
Yeah.
What about if you're going to do tomatoes in a hanging basket, which we've done quite frequently, and they look fantastic and they work beautifully.
Yeah.
So what is your hint or tip for doing that, Elaine?
Well, what I would do is, you know when you've washed a real wool jumper before, Julia?
And shrunk it.
Yeah, that's the one. And then it fits a Cindy doll or something similar.
Yeah.
Well, what I would suggest is that you chop it up,
Yes.
and then what you do is line the hanging basket at the bottom, so you can't see it, but just put it in the bottom of the hanging basket, and then wet it, and then you put your multi-purpose compost or whatever on the top of that, and it retains the moisture for your hanging basket through the season. It truly does work. We've done it, and yes, the roots of the hanging basket will get knotted up, but it's okay. You can pull them apart at the end of October, something like that, when the frost sorts it all out anyway, so go for it.
That's a good tip. And I'll just give you a tip. If you are doing tomatoes in a hanging basket and you are short, you can buy those things that will actually pull down now to make it easier, so it's almost like on a piece of...
On a pulley.
On a pulley, yes. For us short people, otherwise we have to get a ladder or something to water them.
Not a bad thing at all.
Yeah.
That's what we like.
Contact the Potty Plotters anytime on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at Potty Plotters, or email naughtycorner@pottyplotters.uk.
We're here today, and we're very lucky to be able to talk to Lee Norbury. Now, lots of people might not know Lee, but he is the man behind the real act of James Doran Webb. And James is a sculpture person who last year we met at Chelsea.
Well, I live and work in the Philippines, in an island called Cebu, which is central Philippines, and I've been there for 35 years. So you can imagine I have a difficult life. Well, I've been exhibiting in Chelsea. This is my 10th year in Chelsea. So my first year, I was down in the bullring entrance, and I was promoted to Main Avenue 3 years ago, and I'm kind of well known for my kind of extravagant monumental pieces.
Lee, we know that it's a lot of work that goes into all of the growing of the plants, etc., not just for Chelsea, but generally. Tell us how you got involved. What's your background in it all?
I've been a gardener my whole life. Started at 14, 15 years old. Developed my lovely little business into what it is today, looking after people's gardens, landscaping, one-off bespoke jobs. Through that, a while ago, a friend got a job at Chelsea. Last year I got invited again to go and do a specific job on a stand on one of the show gardens on the corner plot. It's gone from there, and met James Doran Webb last year because we were neighbours, built up a friendship, started looking after everything that he'd got last year for this year's show, and then grew into what it is now and the insanity that is Chelsea.
But you said that you started around the age of 14 or something similar, so you've been doing this all your life. How do you know all the proper names and things of plants?
So I'm not formally trained. I didn't go to university or anything like that. It's life training. I was lucky enough to work on a nursery as a young lad, so you very quickly get that knowledge, and it was pretty specific at the time. It was herbaceous, it was bedding plants. Then start looking after gardens and designing gardens even as a young lad, giving them ideas. I didn't know everything at all, but in gardening there can be too many set rules. We all have failures. Sometimes a plant doesn't work in a situation, and that's where you gain more knowledge of right plant, right place. I read a book 25 years ago that called that Right Plant, Right Place, and it does give you ideas, and it gives you even more, I don't know, brain power, and just you learn. It's just self-taught learning. I don't know the name of every plant. I don't know the name of every shrub, but usually by waving my arms about and describing something, I can get across what I'm after. And even in my van today, there's cuttings off my hedge, so I can go to the customer and go, I think you should use this and this.
Yeah.
And there's not many people who do that. I am different, and that's what's worked with James at Chelsea, because he's got very specific ideas, and it's all off the cuff. We've got a plan. We've got an overhead plan of what it should look like.
But it's also about the knowledge as well, isn't it? Because you'll know how long something will take to grow. You'll know whether or not you can bend something without snapping it, and you'll know about the flexibility of different stalks, etc., and the heights that they'll grow to in the short time that they'll be planted.
Yeah, and so we're lucky enough with Chelsea, you do get 12 months notice. You know, when you finish on June the whatever it is 2nd, when you've knocked it all down and it's just a plot of soil again, and you start thinking about next year, the initial ideas, like the blue grasses, the festucas for this year, is that, well, I don't really know what they're going to look like by May. So in June and July, we forced some on artificially to see, so take a photograph every week to see how much it's grown in that week, and then 2 weeks, and then 3 weeks, and 4 weeks, and then you go, right, we're cutting them all back. And then we've got from July, August till May, and they're going to be perfect. James's sculptures is all made in the Philippines by his wonderful team. He's got a factory there, and he basically, using witchcraft and genius, makes pieces of wood and attaches them to the space frame, and it ends up looking like a full-size horse. And it is incredible.
What if you've got a space? What if you haven't got enough? That'd be my worst nightmare.
So I think I've gone over this time and time again. When I went to the Philippines, James has made a miniature, basically, of each sculpture, perfectly to scale, so that his team can turn that into the full size. So one day, via a phone call at 2 a.m. and a video phone call on Zoom, he shows me the base of this year's stand, which he's made miniature jasmine creepers and miniature water, because there's a couple of water features in it, and I'm going, right, okay. So it gave me a bit more of I've been to Chelsea. It's 10 metres by 10.5 metres. That is our space, no more, no less. And so you've already got an idea. If in the polytunnels, you think, right, well, they're getting nearly big enough. Let's put a square metre out. And then it's simple maths. You can just go, well, we need 25 square metres of grasses. We've got enough. Have we got a few spares? Let's do a few spares. And everything's about, you've got to take extra down.
I mean, the one thing that obviously you can't plan for is the weather.
Oh.
Is that what keeps you awake at night?
So nothing keeps me awake at night. Nothing at all. There is nothing I can do about the weather. it is what it is.
And you are so enthusiastic and passionate about what you're doing.
Mad, yeah.
But it shows that actually you don't need the qualification. The hands-on experience is really, that's what you're saying, isn't it?
Hands-on is worth more to me. When I used to employ people and I used to do interviews, I really didn't care if you'd been to university or... I was more interested in, even if you've looked after your own garden. We had a guy turn up in a suit and tie for an interview. He came with his portfolio with his back garden that he'd done. He was a salesman, but he'd done his back garden over 25 years. Incredibly proud. And I says, well, the fact that you've done that, you sort of know what you're doing. You've got a job.
So what can we be expecting then as a surprise when we come to see you when we get to Chelsea?
So I will start with the size of it. So one of the sculptures is simply humongous. It's beyond massive.
That's good because I like big.
Yeah, it is just... And when I got to the Philippines, this thing is in 6 parts. It's that big. It's shipping container after shipping container from the Philippines. Whilst I was there, I experienced it being put together for the first time to its entirety. Chelsea this year, part of it's about celebrating the monarchy again because of the loss of the Queen and our new King. So there's part of our design that's celebrating that. Obviously, James is selling his wares. James is there to sell sculptures in the magnificence of what is Chelsea Flower Show. Most of that spectacle is on build-up. It's insane. It's undescribable. You know, you're talking 4,000-5,000 people working on each individual garden, each trying to get deliveries in, each trying to get this in. And the spectacle of it is just amazing.
Have you got the showstopper for 2023?
Oh, there's a question. So I would say yes. I would say as you walk down Main Avenue, from whichever entrance you come into it from, whether it's from Bullring Gate or the other one I can't remember, from the marquees, you walk down a load of little shops and marquees, and then you turn into Main Avenue. What we've built, what James has built and what we're going to build is visible, but you don't know everybody else's designs. I would say for me it will be the best garden at Chelsea because that's my passion. He's entrusted me over the last 12 months to do this for him.
We just want to say thank you very much to Lee for inviting us down, and next time we found out what a nematode is.
No, it's not a toad. I do get called Mr. Toad sometimes, but it's not a toad. See, at times we get very, very busy because I think what we offer, or we try to get people to buy, or not buy from us, they buy it online, is something that's going to sort their problems out. It's not a want, it's a need, and they need this product if they want to look after their plants or vegetables, and that's what it is, really.
As well as that, we'll be teaching how to plant out beetroot into their final resting place, and those peas as well. They'll be pricked out and we're going to stick them in the ground where they can grow forever and ever, together with the zinnias and the sunflowers. Do you remember doing them?
Oh, yes.
Well, that's what we're going to do. So, nothing tricky, but get your ears ready. We are on full volume, or we should be by then.
That's all for now, and we're going to say goodbye because we're going to get busy on the plots. In fact, I think I brought my sleeping bag down because it is getting so busy. I might as well.
The Plotcast podcast with the Potty Plotters is an Amberland Media production.